Hello everybody, welcome to what may very well be the last Joy of ZZT episode here. It's been quite a while, like a month, because one week I managed to completely forget I was supposed to post an announcement and didn't want to do it a day in advance. And then another week I forgot I had stuff I was supposed to do on Tuesday afternoon, and long story short, it's been a little bit. There's a title screen now. That's new. When we last left off, we kind of finished the game itself. We still had things to link up together, and plenty of placeholders here and there. Our title screen just said Joy. And so I decided I'd spend some time off-stream fixing things up a bit. This is our clean for-release version here. Well, we've got this little title screen. And I took some time, I went through every board, I made generally small changes, which we'll see. I cut down the ammo slightly. I added our little spacesuit here. I added this thing, which I'll reveal what it is later. Oh, the trees have fruit. Good stuff. What do we have here? I don't even remember what we had here, but this system up top for blocking off the duplicators was a horrible mess. So I just replaced it with forest tiles. So you can just step on one and then you're safe. Although at the same time it's kind of redundant because once you get to this point you can just go through the transporter and be done with that area anyway. So mostly it's just been a lot of cleanup. I definitely want to encourage anybody who's been following along with this series to do second passes at things. I have a whole text file which I stupidly did not open, which lists all my changes and why. I believe I filled this area in to sort of indicate that you're going into darkness. That all looks the same. Same. Not used, not used. I vastly improved the mall sign. I like this one. Actually, I found a bug earlier that I didn't fix yet. I want to disable shooting on this board because this mall is made out of breakable walls and water, so you could kind of just shoot apart the building beforehand. And we can't have that. Our mall got finished, mostly with stuff that's irrelevant. There's finally a hot topic now. It's got Funko Pops, t-shirts. There were definitely bugs to fix with this whole thing. It was possible to block Mallbot here, and that would break his code, because he'd kind of just stop and try to vaporize the child somewhere not next to the child. There's the world's tiniest arcade, which I really should have moved up here to one of the larger buildings. Did some rebalancing of our prices, because I did do one playthrough of this game a little earlier. And you're pretty well stocked on supplies. What else we got here? That's a junk board. That's pretty much the same. That's the same. Oh, I have this nice little border here. I think that improves it quite a bit visually. UFO game. This is now properly implemented too. We have our cinema to go into space. We have our death cannon here. This is where we kind of left off last time with this board that I was really unsatisfied with, because I was trying to do 20 different things and none of them were good. So it kind of just turned into a horrible mess. I pretty decently revamped it. No more orbiting shields. That was a fun idea, but it didn't work out like at all. You were either going to have really easy shots or really impossible shots, and it was kind of pointless. I got rid of the blink walls that were shooting electricity. Again, a nice idea. That was kind of running into issues where the ZZT stat order and blink walls can cause some things to go on. We've seen like moving blink walls when we were testing last week, and I had another time where a creature got destroyed by a blink wall in such a way that ZZT screwed up and just left a wall like right here and completely blocked off half of the screen and rendered it unwinnable. So I got rid of that entirely. The way this board works now, it's still the same idea. You get bombs, you blow up these 3 generator things. Every time you do that, all the creatures are erased, so you don't get completely overwhelmed. And it's not an optional thing. Originally the idea was you'd blow these up to slow down the shields and make it easier to make a shot. But now it's just, first you gotta blow these things up, and then the shield, this big old shield here, will go away, and you can shoot the core. Somebody a little while ago was like, hey Das, when are we gonna do the board to the north of the mall? And I said, oh yeah, we're supposed to have a board to the north of the mall. Fortunately, that's just our parking lot, which was a fun little board to make. I had a lot of fun making these slightly different UFOs. And this is also part of the arcade sequence. Once you get inside this one, that's when we go and do our UFO minigame. And there's an ending. So we kind of just clean this stuff up, and I did it all off camera, so you have to also do that all off camera if you're going to be doing this. So I want to just spend a minute and do this whole board that won't exist. I want to talk about this title screen. It's obvious to people who've been following this series. This is the top of our pyramid with our weird orb. I gave the game a title. I had a really good name, and I can't for the life of me remember what it was. And this one kept popping into my head too, and I think it's a decent name. You're the Mars rover. Your job is to rove on Mars and save the day. But if you're doing a title screen, you're probably going to have big old text, and there's some stuff to consider with that. So I'm going to spend some time here. We're just going to draw some letters, because this is one of those things where KevEdit is a miracle with copy and paste and that sort of thing. Because man, back in the old days, if you screwed up your letters, you'd have to like realign them perfectly just by grabbing them tile by tile and shifting things over. It was just so much more of a mess. But obviously, you know, if you're doing letters, you kind of got to figure out your font, as it were. So I got ABC, sure. This is, you know, kind of tall, but a bit narrow. And of course, you gotta think your way through how best to represent letters at these weird resolutions, because I mean that's not the letter D, that's an O. So you gotta remember, erase your corners. And if you're erasing your corners on the letter D, do you want to do this? Do you want your C to look like that? Do you want your B to look like this? Do you want to sort of round things off? Do you want to use half blocks and smooth things out even further? There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of nuance to getting good looking letters. Just kind of going freeform here. Look at how weird that C is. But you know, you can totally make something out of that. And of course, you know, if you're not using white, you're going to be using objects and you're going to run into stat limits. And you also have to deal with the fact that you might have a background. And then you gotta, you know, change the colors here. In this case, you just use purple text, easy enough. But you got, you know, letters of all shapes and sizes. You need to consider too exactly how tall. This works out these 5 characters here works out nicely, so we get this midpoint. You know, if you did something that was taller, you want to do an R. I mean, that's an R, but that looks a lot messier. Would this be better? There's a lot to figure out with your lettering. And this is just like, I mean, solid walls here. I mean, the whole Worlds of ZZT Twitter even has Title Screen Tuesday as a thing still. So you can do your bigger, blobbier letters. Shade them. I'm hitting all the wrong keys now. Basically, you just gotta figure out what your style is. And when all else fails, just use text. Ta-da, now it fits. And again, you know, Kevin, at least you can copy and paste, so you can have a much, much easier time centering things horizontally and vertically if need be. Other things worth considering for your title screens, you know, put your name on it. I very conveniently always have a space in my name to fit the player. Any URLs, Twitters, that sort of stuff. Obviously, you can just include all that in text files or credits in game or something. I like to do this sort of clean row. That way I don't have to worry about backgrounds and things blending in. I just kind of accept that this is not title screen, this is text area. And I mean, even here, you can see I didn't quite 1, 2, 3, 4. I got these weird, very weird heights. So you get this situation here where here's a half block with some lower shading, but it's touching this next one, and I'd have to extend everything down. And how I want to do squishing things together. I mean, it's all experimentation. Because I was not going into this even thinking of doing these half block shading. I just ended up testing it on something. I was like, oh, I kind of like that. I'm just going to put it everywhere. But yeah, you do have to hide the player. I don't know if we even mentioned that way back at the beginning when we did our placeholder title screen, but the player gets turned into this thing under the terrains menu called a monitor. And in ZZT, we'll render this as just an invisible black square no matter what the colors are. But the player gets turned into one, so there's always this kind of empty spot on your title screen. So if you put the player here, it's gonna just leave that gap. So you kind of got to figure out what you want to do with that. Technically, it is actually possible to put the player off the board in one of the three of the 4 corners here. If you actually go one more lower left, lower right, or top right. There's no way to do that with KevEdit. You have to do it by hand right now, or I believe LancerX's work in progress editor actually lets you put the player off the board for a title screen. But then you can actually get a clean screen. So, what else did we do here? What's worth showing off in particular? I don't think I did anything too wild. Let's actually just play this game. You'll see some of the new stuff and get a better idea of what's been done and what's still the same. Your celestial fax machine has received new messages. So you got our mission briefing and a map. So this gives us a way of actually telling the story here, and also a little bit of guidance without just putting up signposts or actually writing text on the boards. So our mission, attention rover. We've detected your landing on the Martian surface. Command has intelligence indicating that the Martian peoples have been ramping production on a new series of killer robots. The Emperor of Mars denies any wrongdoing, stating that the robots are meant to defense for a new intergalactic threat. Objectives: shut down production of killer robots, discover the truth behind this new threat, and destroy it. And what did I play? This border is really good and very much stolen. I played a demo of Flame Frost Blade, and it was not a good demo. But it did this sort of paired arrows to sort of do this kind of circular shape. And I was like, oh man, that is perfect for like a printed out old-timey computer printer where it was just one giant feed of paper like this. And we just have closing these out. Go back to our code here. We just close each of these things out with an idle and jumping back to the touch label, so that just creates kind of an endless menu system. You can hit escape to not pick things, that's one way to close it, or you actually just have to pick exit here. We've got our map. It kind of gives you an idea of how big this world is. There's our pyramid, we know about the factory, current location, the mall, a mysterious structure to the far east. Dang it. There's our map, our pyramid, our factory, current location, the mall, mysterious unknown structures, and the park. It gives the player some insight as to where the heck they're going. It took a while to make that map. Let's go back into our factory. Also, I'm not going to show all of these, I just want to let you know that I added these, because I do still want to release this game, and I do hope that people who've been following along with it being made also still give it a shot, so I wanted there to be something, some sort of surprises for you, so every single board that doesn't have a purple key on it has a secret bonus now. They just give points, they don't change the ending or anything, but if you pay attention, you might be able to find something. Still have our weird earplug situation here. Just gonna get this out of the way and rescue this robot right away. Boy, it's quiet with those earplugs. For once, I remember to use my boulder properly. I scaled back some of the ammo and gems. I think this is still a pretty easy game overall, especially since you can heal to 100 at any time. Well, not any time, but I mean there's the rejuvenation station in the mall. Right through our crushers, pick up our bag of money. This board seems so quaint now compared to what this game's become. Get our purple key. Oh, I didn't actually touch these. Got our cool spacesuit and jetpack. That's what those are. And every time you turn in a purple key, another flag gets set for when you return to the hub here, and you get a new fax. So this will advance the game's story as you go along. You unlock more exciting documents. Mysterious Pyramid. Purple key you have found is one of 5 which will grant access to the peak of the pyramid. The pyramid predates existing Martian civilization and is said to be a place of great power and importance to the Martian race. Continue to find the other keys. So now we actually have a proper quest. It is, since this game can be played in pretty much any order, it was definitely a challenge coming up with these descriptions because I don't know what the player actually did to get their purple key, which I kind of try to use for some humor later, depending on what order you play things in. Some of these updates may end up being a bit more humorous than if you don't do certain things first. Let's actually look at the code here for this a bit more because it's got some complexity to it. I mean, this part's easy enough. We've seen our little menu. But what's more important is actually setting up getting messages. Let's start here. So, yeah, so our exclamation point appears above the machine and this big old solar panel. But there's nothing there by default. It's actually hiding down here. And the game starts with you getting a new message, so it just begins by running some code. You wait a second. Okay, even get comments here. So this guy is actually set to walk 7 steps south at all times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but it can't, it's blocked. So what actually happens is the alarm comes on, it moves in the opposite direction, which is 7 spaces north, and becomes visible as an exclamation point here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's how it gets into position. Once it's in position, let's see here, where was I? Yeah, it pops up here. It then tries to turn itself around immediately, but also blocks itself immediately. So it jumps up to here, over one to the right, and then it puts an actual wall here, so it can't jump back. And then it just loops this little alarm. It does that endlessly until you get very annoyed with it. Or, you know, actually touch the machine, which shuts the alarm off. And once the alarm is off, and it gets rid of that wall to the south, it automatically locks itself back down, and we're back in the initial state here, so we get this sort of endless cycle where I'm making an object jump several spaces just to do a stupid little visual effect. It would have been just as easy, no, it would have been significantly more easy to instead just have this thing turn into an exclamation point on and off. But I wanted the fancy flashing of it all. And so that's how we get our story. We go back to our game. Let's actually go to the mall, because that's got plenty of new stuff. Didn't I just change that? This is what I'm talking about. Yeah, just wreck this mall. Beautiful. The mall is still basically the same. The hot topic here, it's entirely cosmetic. There's no bonuses, no supplies, no nothing. Just a bunch of little gags, because what else was I going to do with it? Let's see. I know I gave a puzzle solution here. 5, 3, something 2. What else did we do? Oh yeah, we got a whole So we got this whole key. Yeah, let's do this key first. Turn this one in. Sell that scrap that we had to pick up to begin with. And you can see we're pretty loaded on gems already, which would make it... So I did crank up the price here a bit. It was originally 10 gems to heal, and I made it up to 20. And I also made the ammo prices a little higher. Oh, I didn't actually witness this kid loitering. We talked to our killbot. And originally we used the... That's a really bad siren, actually. That's way too shrill. But I know originally we had killbot there use a combination of walking and going to move extra fast, and that was causing possible desyncs if the player blocked them. So I had to slow him down, unfortunately. But now we get in the UFO. We get in the arcade with the UFO Catcher here, which is currently full of horrible teenagers. And this here is our little UFO Catcher. Move the claw. Get a purple key. And I mean, it's all just locking the object so it can't get controls while it's doing other things. But we just have it get rid of that object and descend downward and then pop back up and walk to the drop off here. And then this sets messages up here. We get our purple key plush. We get made fun of by teenagers. We'll get our revenge soon enough. We can keep playing. Abduct our human. And again get made fun of by teenagers, who this time invite us into their UFO to try some abduction ourselves. And this is good storytelling, also known as I really didn't want to program opening the door for 3 different objects to leave. So instead they just smash it. It makes them look much more threatening than they are. Yeah, turn this purple key here. Get our new message, which I won't be reading. We get a warning to save because if you do screw up the whole human abduction minigame we did, I just have it kill you. You could set things up so everything resets, and you can try again. But I said, no way. We're dealing with teenagers. They will just send you into space and destroy you. This is all the same. There's some dialogue explaining how to operate it. In low Earth orbit, because we're going to Earth here. Steer, activate the tractor beam, and you know, if you can't pull it off, you get jettisoned into space. That was a good start. And I'm going to just save here just so we can watch as everything goes horribly wrong. The end. Oh, I lied. I apparently never actually put the endgame command in there. So we found a bug. That's good. And we can also just run out the timer, and I'm going to do that in fast mode. I'll leave you here to watch this while I add that endgame. Flipping through the code here, this part is the obvious part. We've just, every time you use the beam, it shoots a bullet. Eventually this object here gets shot. And you'll note that I changed this gem to an empty, because we're using that gem to determine if you can fire, and that'll prevent you from touching the button while you're dead. Actually, I don't think you can touch things when you're dead. That'll prevent you from coming back from the dead with cheats and resuming the game. You're already cheating anyway at that point, so it doesn't really matter all that much. And for this one is actually in the tens counter, because eventually this thing hits actually 0, and this tries to decrease when it's already 0. And that's when we get this one instead. And then for winning, which I guess I didn't actually show, but you can imagine how that goes. You abduct the 3 humans, timer stops, which is important so you don't accidentally get a game over if you win at the last possible second. Actually, I need to make this no energy. Okay, no energy stop. I did do that. Yeah, okay, that's at the end here. No energy stop. So this will prevent you from, dying when you already won. But I think this should be up top instead of down below. Going back. I'm in fast mode. Uh-oh. Well. So much for that. Try at a normal pace. There we go. We get our purple key. We're free to leave. And we can never go back on the ship. I also made sure to include this, since the implication here is that there's more parking lot. But I do want to... Oh, I missed the spot. What? Where is there a gap here? Oh, I was probably copying and pasting this sign and moving it around. But there's supposed to be a whole column here just so you kind of know for sure, like, hey, this is the end of the board, go away. Even though it looks like you might be able to walk off the edge. It gives us key 3. Go down here. This part is basically untouched. You can see again, we're pretty loaded on supplies. At one point I did consider getting rid of this ammo here, but I did also have the thought that if you don't have any ammo, you're currently trapped in this area anyway, so it's not like you can walk back to the store from here. You gotta go through this segment either way. Torches were also pretty overkill, yeah. It's more than enough. And in fact, since that's the only dark board in the game, if we were so inclined, if you actually open the world information with W, we can set the torch cycles to basically however many ticks. I think, I'm going off the top of my head here, I think it's either, no, 20 seconds is way too long. Might only be 100 you get from a normal torch, but you can crank this up, and this here is basically 3 hours of automatic torchlight. So, good news is there's no way anybody's going to play this game for 3 hours and not get to this board. But you can definitely do that as a way of having one really, really long torch. Keep in mind, of course, in the event that it does run out, if you light a torch, it's just going to be the regular torch duration. So it's kind of really enforcing a sort of a hard time limit if you do this. I don't think Nightmare does the challenge, does the maxing points with centipedes. But yeah, you do get more points for shooting segments than heads, so to maximize your score, you would want to actually shoot them back to front, because if you shoot one in the middle, a segment will turn into a head. But yeah, that's one way to pretty much guarantee torchlight, and not have the player actually even mess with the actual torch system in the game. It just runs the risk of that 3-hour time limit. Of course, that's also something that, with ZZT having source code now, it is extremely trivial to just, not decrease torch time, and you could have an endless torch if you wanted. But that's getting well beyond the scope of my first ZZT game. Let's go back to our game here. Grab our key, get out of here. Ah, good to know. You can break it if you actually ignore it. This is what testing is all about. So yeah, now that object is actually here, and it's considered in the off position. I think I originally had it up top, which is why I was even able to walk that way to begin with, but yeah, that's definitely something to fix. So our next path is just going all the way east, doing our puzzle room. Did I put on re-enter when zapped here? Okay, good, because this is definitely the kind of board that's designed for. This game has a lot of like high-pitched, shrill sirens in it. You should probably either put a warning to save before you go in here, or... Well, no. A lot of these puzzles would be a pain to actually code to reset. I should definitely put a save warning. Trivia questions. So you kind of don't want to go this way first, I guess, because you have to go to the robot factory, and the mall, and the park, to actually know all of these in advance. I might want to consider redoing that trivia section as well, if that... because it would kind of suck to go to the right first. You'd really get punished for it without having any reason why you should. Let's see, how did this puzzle work? That's just a bonus. Keys. I'm an expert at my own puzzles, I say before I get to this one. I guess that random mashing worked. This part here is still not very good. This is a good example of proof of concept versus a fleshed out idea. So I'm going to have to deal with this thing breaking one more time. Actually, that's it. That's all 5. But I did make sure if you backtrack one more time, you can get one final message. But that's plot spoilers. If we wanted to, I mean, we got a ton of gems. We can stockpile some on ammo here. Our health is well in excess of 100, so there's no benefit to that. We could, of course, do something like add an option for a 200 health overheal that costs more. Or we could just, you know, further tweak our gem supply. So, I mean, this is plenty of ammo. And then we just go on to our final challenge. That is probably the case with my ability to shoot them all to pieces. And you know, some games will just be like, well, there's no reason to shoot on this board, so I'll disable it. Although I guess we did have it with that one secret that I put in here, but you can always help the player save their ammo. And also not have to wonder what happens if I shoot this guy if you can't shoot, period. Warp to space. Here we go. I also tweaked the speed at which all these replicators do their thing. So I mean, this is now still a lot easier. And you also see I used keys here, and that's because originally I had it go from like solid to normal to breakable to water, you know, following the usual pattern. But then I realized when your bomb explodes, that makes breakables, so I couldn't use breakables. Because I ended up with a bomb exploding just as they got turned into water at one point, which went poorly. And similarly, you can also see that's why I kind of redid the power cords for those generators that used to be made out of normals, because I wanted to be able to use normals. And I think I did the same thing. I don't remember what the actual walls of this orbital death cannon were originally, but I made them boulders, mostly just to be different. Since they're all on edge here, you can't actually push them anyway. And I'm still not satisfied with this board. Like, there's like these things here where you can get some health and ammo if you need it, but there's no way you're ever gonna want to do that. It's just a waste of time mostly. You can see that these things on the corners are actually objects and not breakables. Laser gets charged, laser gets fired, cord gets hurt. Just kind of rinse and repeat here. And they didn't stop the replicators, but once you defeat the core, you just, move somewhere and you get warped and you get your ending. Sorry, it's a downer. Oh no! Whoops. I was about to say how I purposely commented out part of the ending so as not to spoil it, but I didn't apparently comment all of it out. Because yes, the actual proper ending is that they do rescue you at the end. Whoops. Instead, we're gonna get them. Instead, they just miss here. Because that was my placeholder ending. Whoops. Spoilers. And this would be where I'd put any credits. How tragic. Actually... Well, I guess we can fix that proper if we're doing this. Okay, yeah, so let's actually explain a couple of things. First and foremost, how we're doing this reactor core. Because this laser's firing a whole bunch of bullets at once. So I just have the object lock itself after it gets shot once and wait a little bit. That way it only counts as one hit, even though you're firing a whole bunch of bullets. So that gives you the feel of firing off a big laser weapon with a bunch of shots versus nothing. What I need to do... Oh, these don't even have code to stop. That counts. Stop, 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 stop. Okay. Oh, and this one. Stop. So now at the end here, send a replicator to stop, and it'll stop. Yeah. So I have this wait here so you get time to actually read the message and hear the little sound effects. And then I activate these objects called copy. And actually I had a different system at first, which is why this is kind of silly how it's set up. So these are all boulders in this corner. All I need is this corner down here. There's this object called copy that turns into a player. I'm going to set the copy message, and I'm just going to put a second one here. So then we get two player clones, passages to the ending, And as soon as the player moves, the player clones will try to move, and so they'll end up walking into a passage. And that's just a quick and dirty way to warp the player. It involves them taking a step versus what we did to beam them upward here to begin with, where we used like a board edge. But that's just the more standard, straightforward solution, even if it's slightly more player involvement. And for this guy here, this spaceship thing is made of lions. They have had their stats removed. And you just do that, you make a lion, Control T for the tile information, and remove stats. And that just means they're going to stand still, and they're going to blend in, and they're going to get destroyed. What the heck is one? By bombs. So I've got a couple of these are actually bombs in here, and I just have their fuses adjusted to different amounts. And that's what kind of does the whole little explosion after a moment or two. And the ship explodes. And the player is here in the middle. Once the bombs are all gone, they wait a moment up here and they start drifting into space. I think that should be... Well, I guess we'll spoil the ending proper since we already saw half of it. Well, we've already seen this half. This time we will hopefully not drift off into space and be destroyed. Oh, and I'm off by one somewhere. Close enough. Still bugs. Interesting. What desynced there? Oh, I wonder. Actually max out game speed here. Yeah, so that's actually dependence. That's too fast to see it. But, Okay, yeah. So the way that I had the drifting work was quite simply have them move slowly and walk west. And then, this object here handles ending, handles all the text and the timing, and then makes the UFO appear. And it's all supposed to sync up nicely, but cycle 7 means you're kind of at the whims of the game timer, actually. So I'm going to have to go back and replace this walk and actually count out the spaces just to ensure that the player pops properly. Because, yeah, the game tick can get in the way. Oh, yeah, actually, well, the invisible wall would stop drifting, but the time that it broke, it had the player actually who wasn't far enough, so they ended up walking into, like, the beam. But, yeah. Easiest thing to do is just code the steps. Then I don't have to worry about it. And then have the beam happen once the player gets into the right spot over here. But that's our game. It's a start to finish, it's playable. It's still got some bugs. And, well, that's about it, really. What I hope anybody watching who's been following along whatsoever will do is spend some time, just working on this without this video playing, and just do a little bits of cleanup here and there. Mess around with stuff, find little things that'll just make for a smoother experience. Make sure that your bullet counts are correct and re-enter when zapped is on or off appropriately. Consider ways the player might break your game. Like one thought I had, extremely unlikely, but you could go through this board, get this boulder, push it up here, push it all the way over here, push it down here, and now this transporter is blocked and you've just soft locked the game. And that's kind of really going out of one's way to break things. It's still worth handling a weird edge case like that if you can, but you'll almost certainly find situations where things break in much more reasonable scenarios than that. Let's see, can we soft lock up here? Oh, we have 2 doors. I think we're safe here because of this lower transporter. But if we only had this upper one, then we can end up having the pusher get moved up to here, and then push a boulder up to here, and again we'd be blocked. So you definitely want to think about all the ways things can break horribly. The best thing to do, of course, is to have other people test your game. If you take the boulder here, these are just blink walls, so it'll work fine. You can just grab a boulder here real quick and observe. It'll make it through. There's only 2 boulders? Yes, that's still fine too. If you push the second one through, it would just... Oh no, I guess there's a billion boulders, what am I saying? You pushed a whole bunch of boulders through, I still don't think you'd be able to do it. It would be some very... It would be a very time-consuming way to break the game. Well, that would be a won't fix for me. But the best thing you can do is get other people to test your game. Ask your friends, family, acquaintances. Tell them to play your MS-DOS game that you made in the year 2020. If you hop onto the Worlds of ZZT Discord, I have no doubts that people there would be more than happy to do some beta testing for any works in progress. And I mean, of course you can test things yourself, but you'll generally get better results if you can get somebody else's eyes on things. Because you'd be amazed. I've broken plenty of ZZT games unintentionally and horribly. And you know, put in a little story elements. It's hardly anything fancy here, but it's something. I'm not too big a fan of just get 5 keys and go. But ask around. Worlds of ZZT Discord. I'll just toss that in chat here. I remember how to spell words. It's just museumofzzt.com/discord. That'll redirect you to the invite link properly. There'll be people there who would be happy to help, myself included, with testing or just advice in general. Other than that, I think the only thing that's really left to do is package this. Obviously, we ran into some bugs here, so we're not quite ready. But let's actually do something here as a quick proof of concepts. Let's see if Firefox here will cooperate. Beautiful. Am I running? No. So I'm just going to load up the Museum of ZZT's dev server real quick. And let's go through real fast how to actually submit a game, because we're basically done. Yeah, that's the wrong button for sure. Let's switch back to KevEdit so I can use my browser freely. Yeah, Purple Key is not like a bad system whatsoever, but for one thing, the nonlinear nature, while it has its advantages, it makes it a lot tougher to tell a story, because you don't know what order the player's going to encounter things in. Let's see here. Kind of just on the fly messing with OBS at this point. I don't even know what this scene 2 is, so it's going to show up. Nothing. Okay, perfect. If open up my ZZT folder here and then put that into OBS. Okay, well that's not cooperating. But long story short, all you really want to do is pop open a text editor. Notepad is more than adequate. And here, we'll do it in KevEdit. We'll pretend this is Notepad. And you just make yourself your text file, and technically you don't need one, but it's nice to have any sort of documentation for your game and the usual information. It was mandatory back in the Z2 days to include text files with all the database information. Yeah, actually you can straight up write text in here and save text files, but this is not how anybody would actually write a text file normally. The only advantage writing in KevEdit gives you is that it's obviously properly formatted to fit inside a ZZT scroll. But I mean, just a simple title, author, genre, company, if that's your jam. Date, never hurts to have some concrete dates. Back in ye olden times, we actually cared about the size of files. It's small is pretty accurate these days, if you're not including like an MP3 soundtrack with your game. I mean, it never hurts to write a description, explanations for people who have never played ZZT. There's a far more likely odds these days with Zeta and things being playable in the browser that they have no experience whatsoever with ZZT. And so it doesn't hurt to tell them how to load worlds and play them. Description of the game if you want. Talk about the history. Give it a good old version number. Again, it's all just nice to have. It's especially nice to have when it's 5 years from now and you have no idea what the context of this game is. These text files can be pretty helpful. But from there, we go over to the museum, which looks something like this, and is slightly cut off because, why is it cut off on the right? Well, I guess I used to only use this for back when I would do reviews, and then Firefox just like broke in OBS for several months, so I stopped doing that. Don't want the right half of the screen to be cut off. What's going to happen here? Oh, nasty. Well, it's a better idea. Let me write down these crop values and I will recrop later. 6 top, 245 on the bottom. No, 245 on the right. And just like that, it stopped showing up. Wonderful. Slightly better. This horrible mess is a web browser. If you look in the top right, that is still partially cut off for some reason. Probably because that's not centered right. There's an upload button. You will click the upload button. And then you'll just get a big old form. Browser files. I'm realizing I don't know. I didn't actually make a zip. You'll want to make a zip file. That in Windows is as simple as just like right-clicking on the file and saying you want to compress it. So you pick your zip. Okay. looking at it, it's not even showing the pop-up. But you would pick whatever your zip is. I don't even know what this zip is, but it's a zip file. Fill out your information. I'll call it something jam. Any genres. Let's see, we are in adventure. Does this count as edutainment? And remember, if you don't finish your game, you can still upload it anyway. And just say it's incomplete. Adventure, sci-fi. It's not really spacey. Set a release date. Today. And this is for utility, so it doesn't even matter. You just click upload file. And in this case, because the random file that I grabbed was already an existing file, it failed horribly. But that's all you have to do, and that'll at least get you to the museum. And you'll show up in this upload queue. And see my beautiful dev files. But that's all it'll take to make it viewable and playable as well. I would not advise uploading an incomplete beta version of the game. You're better off just like sharing that file on Discord or some other method. However, if you do upload something and then 5 minutes later find a bug, as everybody, including myself, does, it's very easy for me to replace zip files. So ideally, once you upload, you should be hoping something is, quote, final, but we shall see. I think that's gonna be it. Let's see, is there anything I did not show with my changes that was worth showing? That's about it. We can actually look at the Ufo Catcher Code a bit, because that was kind of a mess. So I mean, this part's easy enough. Tell the crane to move left and right, or to, drop down. Crane itself tries to move left or right. This kind of stops it. It zaps all these labels right away when you tell it to drop so that you can't interrupt it. It changes to the hook character. Then we have this sort of check here for the prizes. Actually look that they're blocked by the crane, and if so, that means they got grabbed. If nothing is grabbed, which will happen, if you try to grab on these left two tiles, or a tile where you already grabbed your thing, and then nothing happens and it kind of resets itself. And this part isn't too bad either. If you actually look at the code for these, it's just they check if they're blocked. If they are, they tell the crane which prize got picked up. Now the actual complex machinery is this guy here. Because here we're kind of juggling states. I've had to purposely make it so that you can only... the crane doesn't reset until you collect your prize, so I didn't have to worry about there being two prizes in the slot or anything like that. But you can see we touch here. We're actually restoring touch when one of the prizes is picked up, which won't do anything if nothing's been zapped, and then zaps. And lets you properly pick this thing up. And then meanwhile here, if you collect the purple key, it restores the touch label so that it's safe to assume that all of these are unzapped. And then it zaps two touches. So it would cancel out this one, cancel out this one, and then bring us to the purple key one instead. This was a crammed, horrible little mess. I kind of wished I had done a bigger room for that, or made the arcade like in a separate board entirely. Because I'm just like throwing out the ability to have arcade machines with funny names. Like, why even have an arcade if you can't do that? guess that's about it. I really hope y'all have been enjoying watching this series. I guess this is going to be the last official one, at least for the time being, unless we decide to go for another game. It is a good control panel. As often is the case, whenever you see something I make and say it looks really good, that means that I stole it from something else. Which is pretty much how ZZT works. That's what you get when you have these open editors. So I'm going to wrap it up here for the night. I guess this will be a slightly short one. I'm going to do... What I would like to do, again, is have y'all get some testing done, finish up your games as needed. Ask for myself or others on Discord, email, Twitter, whatever, do something. Get people. I'll happily retweet and get people to test your games, whatever we gotta do if you finish something. And even if you don't finish something, again, I would love to see that people were putting in the effort at least. It's really cool to me, the idea that we'll have these new ZZT games because I did this series, and ideally by folks who have never made one before. One last thing I was going to... Oh yeah, I will do... I don't know if it'll probably just be a text article, because that probably will be a lot more sensible than a video. But one last thing for this series, where I'll explain how to actually upload your game to itch. Do people call it itch.io? Itch.io? Or just itch? Itch.io. That site for all the indie games. Well, yeah, that'll work. I call it itch. But itch or itch.io, whichever it may be. Itch.io. Nobody knows. I don't think there's a correct answer. But I would like to show how to actually get your ZZT game up on there, and that'll expose it to a significantly wider audience in theory. You still have to get people to click your link, but it'll let you break out from the ZZT community at least. Yes, we'll tag it with ZZT and hopefully feed and end the cycle of more people making ZZT games because of it. But I'd like to show off how to publish on there, also for my own benefit, because I think I've only done that like once. And similarly, Zeta as well has just a standalone web version, so of course you'll be able to play online in your browser on itch. But additionally, if you have your own hosting somewhere else, it's easy to set up as well and just put it on your own website. So that's going to wrap things up. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for sticking along. This series was extremely experimental. I really didn't know what to expect of it. I kind of lost the plot a bit, and it also ran on significantly longer than I expected it would. So I apologize if it's a bit of a horrible mess. From what it sounds like, at least people who haven't watched live can at least, watch the recordings and jump around as needed or pause as they want to work on their things. But it was a fun project to do, at least. So I'm going to call it a night here. Thank you all for watching. One last time, Museum of ZZT.com/Discord. Hop in here, and we'll get some people to take a look at what you made. And this should also be our last Tuesday stream. I'm going to start just exclusively doing streams on Sundays. Sunday afternoon gets bigger crowds, and it's far more convenient for me and everybody else, as long as my work schedule keeps cooperating. Okay, that's it for real now. I'll see ya.